Is it recording?
Yeah.
All
It
right.
is.
Hey, hello and welcome to this week's edition of Carvel Community Meeting. Today's date is 14th August, 2024. If you're watching this as a recording, we encourage you to come join us live. We meet every second and fourth Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time. It's an opportunity to listen to what the maintainers are working on, provide live feedback, ask questions, or get live help with any of the tools. For those that are here today, if you have anything you wish to discuss with the community, please add it to the discussion topic section at the end of the agenda below. If you aren't able to attend live and would like to reach out to us with questions or feedback, you can also find us in the Kubernetes Slack workspace in the Carvel channel. You can email us, find us on GitHub and on X at Carvel_dev. When you attend these meetings, we ask you that you please read and abide by a code of conduct, which is linked out here in the agenda. For those in attendance, please add your names and organization you represent in the attendees list. All right, next on to the agenda. We do not have any announcements this week. And I think the releases were done last month. I don't think we have any upcoming releases. We can move on to the status updates. I believe nothing has been added to the project roadmap. Yep, it was on me to update the milestones, which we have not done yet. I will go ahead and do that post this meeting. We have been working on quite a few things in kapp and kapp-controller. Folks, if you want to update.
Yeah, I can talk about that. So it's mainly kapp and more around like a question and kapp-controller. So the first thing, something Rohit's been working on, I guess I can summarize it. Rohit, feel free to add something. So far, when we have dealt with weight rules, it's like if you see a certain condition, you either succeed or you fail. What we introduced is that if a certain condition is around for, let's say, X amount of time, you want kapp to say that you've timed out. So that's sort of an enhancement to how we can configure our waiting behavior. And that's been merged. The first set of changes are something we're expecting like in the next release. After that, we have selective ownership override. Okay, so this is slightly more complicated because this is not something we have encouraged people to do so far. We used to have a dangerous flag. We still have the dangerous flag called dangerous override ownership of. I'll have to look at it, but essentially it's a flag that allows someone who's using kapp to override ownership of a resource, right? And it's a dangerous flag. So our use case over here was that we want to be able to say which apps we can snatch ownership from. So to actually talk about why we did this. So essentially, let's say you're playing around with a bunch of resources and you want to move them to a, let's say, a GitOps repository of sorts, right? But you know exactly which resources which apps you were dealing with while playing around with your resources. So you sort of specify a bunch of names and you only allow snatching of resources from these names. And like one discussion we had was, since this flag is much more scope, do we still want to force folks to put in the dangerous flag when we're using this? But for now, that's the behavior. Like if you have the dangerous flag, you can actually choose to filter through the apps that you want to snatch ownership from. Yeah, I think that's about it. And yeah.
Any questions on that?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Hey, so kind of feels like that having the two flags is like too much. I don't know,
Yeah.
like what are we winning really here? Right? Because in the end, if you are providing explicitly the flag to set like ownership override, is allowed for a particular set of apps, you're already saying that you want to allow that ownership. Like, what would be the behavior of if you deploy with the flag ownership override allowed apps without the dangers? Are we going to do something? Are we going to fail?
It's not going to do anything at all. But essentially the help section calls out that you need to set this other flag for this to do anything at all.
I understand that's what the documentation say, because that's how we implemented it, right?
Yeah.
I'm just questioning the UX of it.
Right.
Like in the end, you're kind of already saying that that's what you want it to be. And I think that it doesn't, okay, how can I phrase this? It stops being dangerous when you explicitly tell what are the apps that you want to snatch resources from. Right? Because then there's like, it's like it's a conscience, oh my God, the conscience, okay, whatever. You understand what I'm saying? It's a decision that you made with your head.
Yeah, 100%.
And you know precisely that you're going to pick it from here and move it here, right? When you do the dangerous flag as a whole, you're saying like, whatever app has it, just give it to me, right? Like that's dangerous. While the ownership change, because you're specifying the from, it doesn't become as dangerous, I think. So like in some sense, I think in terms of UX, requiring the two flags is not very good.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like this is something we actually wanted to change subsequently. We just wanted to get like the first bit of this stuff in. Yeah. So this, however, has one limitation. We only allow this for apps that are in the same namespace. This is mainly because we don't want to have logic which starts by listing namespaces and then iterates through all namespaces to figure out what you can snatch ownership from, right? And this is in line with what we do with kapp-controller, like encourage patterns, because you want all your, or a set of your package installs to be in one namespace. So yeah.
What about cluster wide resources? Because dangerous override does pick up cluster wide as well, right?
No, I'm not talking about the resources themselves. I'm talking about where our app meta is stored, like the config map, essentially. So is the namespace your package install isn't?
So basically, like, okay, let me just try to refresh my memory on what this command does. This command basically, if you have a particular resource that is shared, that exists from one app, and you try to install another app that has that same resource, it will snatch it and it will make it part of your app, right?
Right.
Whatever resource that is. Being a namespace resource, being a cluster resource, right? That's what the dangerous override ownership of existing resources do. So my question to you was, you said that this is only works for namespace resources. And I asked, what about cluster scoped resources?
Okay, so now we have I'm not talking about the namespace of the actual resources. I'm talking about what the dash and flag does. So essentially, if you're deploying, let's say, a kapp app, you store some metadata in a certain namespace, essentially in a config map. So if you're snatching ownership from another app, that metadata needs to be in the same namespace.
Oh, wait, so this doesn't transfer the ownership of a particular resource, but only on the metadata that kapp creates? Is that what the dangerous override does?
No. Okay, so let me clarify this. So let's say you have like two apps, right?
Yeah.
And okay, let's do it with two package installs. I think it's easier that way. You have two package installs in different namespaces. They cannot snatch ownership from each other, because the metadata is stored in the same namespace as the package install. But you have two package installs in the same namespace, they can snatch ownership from each other.
Ownership of what?
All the
Sorry, if I try to summarize it, but what I understood from Soumik is trying to say that when we do cap deploy, right? -a app. So with that app, it creates a config map, right? Which correspond to your app. So what essentially he's saying is that if this config map, which represent your cap app, if they are in same namespace, then only the ownership override is allowed. Otherwise, he'll not do anything. That is essentially what he's trying to say.
I don't, so like, I'm confused about what dangerous override ownership of existing resources does. We have an app that contains a custom resource called bananas. And then I have a second app that also contains a resource called bananas,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So what happens when I deploy the second app with dangerous override ownership of existing resources? My assumption is that the resource called bananas will change the cap app ID metadata
Right.
to the new app.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so like my understanding is correct. Okay, so I don't understand what y'all are talking about metadata. Are you talking about like that particular field on the resources?
So
Or are
you're
you talking
choosing-
about the config map that is created by cap to store the like, let's call it a cache or whatever from the installation?
So the resources are the ones that are stolen, and yes, the ID is replaced. But so to figure out the ID, right, you need to find the config map of the other apps. So what we're doing is, instead of looking across namespaces, we are only looking at the namespace which the app is getting deployed in. When it's an app, I mean where the metadata is being stored. Does that help?
Okay, so if you install an app
Right.
that contains, for example, like a cluster resource called
Right.
bananas in namespace A,
Yes.
if you try to install a second app on namespace B that also has the same cluster resource bananas, it will
Yeah.
fail. That's what you're saying. Because it
Right.
cannot get the config map information. Okay, got it.
That's all. Yeah. So, I mean, this is a restriction we can look towards changing later on, but like you run into suspicious scenarios where all of a sudden you need more permissions to be able to, do everything. So that's mainly why we decided
We cannot do that. Like, that's a security problem, right? Like,
Yes, exactly.
if you allowed people to just jump namespaces to own resources, it's just a security problem. So we cannot do that ever.
Exactly. That's why we were like, we can scope this for now.
But isn't that what we are already doing with dangerous override ownership?
No, because dangerous essentially ignores whoever owns that app. The filter does not do
Still,
that.
it is jumping the namespace, right?
Yes, that's why it's dangerous, I guess. Because that is an escalation.
I'm just, it feels like one flag is going to work across namespaces and this one is just in the same namespace. Should we?
In the end, it's scoped to whatever RBAC you have for your service accounts, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So like, you will not be able to, like, in the end, you'll not be able to get ownership of something from a namespace that you don't have access to.
That will be what essentially are we saying? Like, I'm sorry, can we repeat that? Like, you will not be able to snatch the ownership if you don't have RBAC?
So if you don't have access to a particular namespace, right? You will not be, like, your service account does not, you install a package on namespace A, and then you install a package on namespace B, but the service account that you use to install on namespace B, the package there, you will not be able, if it only has access to that namespace, you'll not have access to go to another namespace to change anything or to change like metadata or something. So you'll not be able to snatch something that's in another namespace. The problem, the only problem here is that if you have like, let's imagine that both the apps install RabbitMQ in the same namespace. Then the service account would need access to both of them, like on a third namespace, and that would be a problem, like for example. Right, like app A installs RabbitMQ on namespace C, and then package B installs RabbitMQ on namespace C, right? Like in that case, the second package will snatch whatever came from the first one. That's going to be like interesting. Like we do not allow people to set this up on package for kapp-controller, right?
If it is dangerous flag is exposed in kapp-controller, I guess.
It is.
But it needs to be like a kapp-controller configuration, or can it be like a package configuration?
It has to be package configuration.
Package configuration, by default, it is disabled.
That's interesting because like this could make a package fail deployment.
Yep.
Right, like if you have two packages, like this example, if you have two packages that install RabbitMQ on the same namespace, the second one will get ownership of the resources from Rabbit. So the first one, when it reconciles, it will fail because it cannot change anything from that is not part of their app.
Yeah, but yeah, and the configuration drift could happen.
Yeah.
In the first one.
And if they both provide like the dangerous flag, then there will be a fight, right?
Yeah.
Where like I'll change
Everything-
it, and then the other one reconciles it. I'll change it back, and this one like I change it again, and then I change it back. So it will be like constantly like reconciling and fighting each other. That's an interesting use case. That's why we tell people to do not install things in different namespaces, in common namespaces with packages, right? So
I
yeah.
think this warrants a dangerous prefix.
The override? I think the override might not be a problem, right? Like, sorry, the allowed apps might not be a problem in itself.
Right?
Yeah, I think we're like more cautious there, so I don't think it's.
No, the same scenario which we are talking about, like two different packages with RabbitMQ in the same namespace. So either the first one will eventually fail every time because of the ownership error, or even if that defines this flag, then it will be snatching whenever any package reconcile, it will try to snatch.
Yeah, you got a good point. Yeah, that definitely will happen, right? Like if you have two apps, the first one is going to fail after this, after the first time that you reconcile the deployment with ownership change, the first app will always fail.
Correct.
Yeah.
Is it something that we want? That we want to do? To allow better?
I guess a general flow we have recommended when you're like doing any sort of snatching is that you do a no-op delete for the first one. And then you go ahead with this process, right? So given that's the case, I think it's all right.
So in the end, I agree with Rohit. This should be a dangerous flag. Because in the end, this is going to break the first app, or it's going to break all the apps that you transfer ownership from. And you need to explicitly make a delete no op of the app.
So I guess the change we can make is make this a dangerous flag and make it so that the other flag is not required, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Sounds good.
And if we could do that before we release, that would be great. Just
Yeah,
just to make sure that we don't have like an intermediary version of like this feature.
yeah, makes sense.
And we should call out like on the documentation, like very explicitly that if you're using these flags, that we advise you to do delete no op of the other app, or else it will
Mhm.
bring you to a problem. Maybe we should have like a call out there. I don't know if we have a call out on the documentation for the dangerous flag for the override ownership.
Sounds like should be a FAQ, but I'm not sure.
Okay, sounds good.
Are we saying we're going to remove this flag altogether?
It's gonna stay, but we will have to use both together.
You use the one on the right, the last one, if you want to do all of them, or use just the left one with the prefix dangerous by itself if you want to target particular apps.
Also, like another thing is this is not yet allowed in kapp-controller, which was actually a point in the kapp-controller section. I'm not sure if we should allow it yet. Like we can once it's dangerous, but I guess it's up for discussion.
I don't think in kapp-controller we should do it.
Okay.
Because like even the dangerous is like pretty dangerous. Like there, what is the so like when you're deploying like manually, there's no like there's no re-reconciliation. So in the end, there's really no major problem here because you're not going to try to re-reconcile, right? So the only way that this will break in a kapp scenario that you're just running kapp locally is if you like apply one application and then apply the second one and try to apply the first one again, right? Then the first one will fail. So that's like a manual step, so that's okay. Now in kapp-controller, then you'll have like an error happening forever because kapp-controller will try to reconcile it. It will always try to reconciling it every X amount of minutes that you have the reconciliation period. It's gonna try and fail, try and fail, try and fail, try and fail.
Do you think it should still be a dangerous flag if it's not allowed in kapp-controller?
I think it's dangerous to execute it in kapp, right? Because you're kind of stealing resources, right? It's whatever you do, even it's locally, it's kind of dangerous to do it because if you're doing it like locally on your app and you're doing it on two apps that you own, it's not dangerous because you know what you're doing. But if I'm stealing your resources, then when you try to kapp deploy, it will fail for you, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like my problem with the allowing it in kapp-controller is that then it will be like an eternal error.
Yeah.
Unless you uninstall a package.
Right. That makes sense.
Or worse, if you have an app CR that is doing this, like if you create an app CR that does this,
Yeah.
because then it's going to be a little bit harder for you to find it out if you're just like working with packages.
So I guess what we want to do at the end is make this a dangerous flag and not require the other flag when you're using this, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Not allowed in kapp-controller for the time being.
And until we have like a very good example for that, I don't think we should. And like if we want to allow it, maybe it would make sense to have like a different mechanism on kapp-controller, where you would explicitly say on kapp-controller, say like, I want to steal these resources from this particular app. I don't know like how you can do it in kapp-controller because like it's a little bit like you don't have so much control over the app ID, right?
Yeah.
But like you have to just explicitly tell it, and maybe kapp-controller is smart enough to say like, okay, maybe I should stop reconciling the other app. and not not reconcile more the other, or reconcile it like in a different way, or something like that. So like I think that there might be like some thought that needs to go on kapp-controller.
Okay.
Yeah, but
If there's like a use case for usage of this flag.
I think
We
until
don't
we get any use
about the-
case, let's not touch it on kapp-controller side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. I think that's like the best path for us.
That sounds good.
All right.
Yes, there are a couple of more updates, unless any other thoughts on this one? So I guess the next, so another small update, which there's not a lot to speak about, honestly, is that the controller runtime bump is still going on. It's in the wrong section. Sorry, could you move it to kapp-controller?
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's a small update, and things that have come up that we should probably look at. The first one is actually interesting. So someone's essentially deploying in a single kapp app a package and a package install. And the package is ordered using change rules to be deployed before the package installs. And that works just fine for the first create. But what they're saying is they observe that when they essentially try and bump the versions on both the resources, what happens is it sort of ends up waiting for it first applies the changes to the package install, and then the package install errors out, and that leads to a failure scenario. So I think I'll probably be spending some time looking into this. And the second one is actually more of a minor one from a kapp perspective, but probably more helpful for kapp-controller. So what we do today, so whenever there's an ownership error, right, we do like sort of a best effort call to get the app name in the error message along with the ID. To do this, we list all the apps in that particular namespace. However, we do this for every resource that fails with this error, right? So in theory, if you essentially have an apps here or like a package install which is consistently failing with this, you sort of bomb the API server with a get all errors, a bunch of get all requests. So we think we should introduce some form of caching here. Yeah, and so that's something we're probably planning to do. So there's just a resource, like a issue created for it for now. Yeah, I think that's about it for kapp.
Yeah. Just
Caching
trying to-
kapp stuff is a little bit tricky, right?
Yeah, like we thought about that. The thing is, if your kapp deploy goes on for long enough, it is all of a sudden not right, correct? However, the thing is, this is still a best effort thing where you're essentially trying to make the error message more helpful. So I think the trade-off is worth it here. You still have the kapp ID in the error message. You just won't have the app name. Let's say if the app somehow gets deleted while you're still deploying, it doesn't really affect the behavior. It's just more of a sugared error message. But that's why I said, like, it's pretty minor from kapp's perspective. But if you think about kapp-controller, if there's a resource that's repeatedly failing like this, you actually send out a lot of requests. So yeah, that was the main concern.
Yeah, we should not, in terms of like kapp-controller, we should not rely on caching for anything except like visuals. Because the cluster can be
Right.
changing like
Yeah.
all the time, right? So we cannot rely on cache for that. Unless
Yeah.
we make cache so smart that it gets updated when there's a change on all the resources. But then in that case, then we'd have to create like listeners for all the resources. Right, and to store our own cache, and I don't know like how efficient that would be.
Yeah, but this is like purely a sugared layer. So I think it's better to not raid the API server. if we
Let's make sure that future us don't see, oh wow, look, there's a cache here, let me use it to do stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. 100%.
Let's make sure that like the future us never use those functions for things that that are not like sugarcoating or like just showing some informational stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
I don't think we can
I guess
like
it was-
I don't think we can prevent that with code in any way, but maybe like we should have like some documentation on the functions themselves saying like this function is just for coding. It might not be
Yeah.
100% accurate or something like that on the function itself. Like get some information there so people know.
Mhm. Yeah, I was actually sorry, go ahead.
This, you have already merged changes for this, Somik, is it?
No. This is just something we found out while working on the other change, the filtered snatching of ownership.
Mhm.
So instead of trying to merge two changes, we just like created an issue.
Hmm. Okay. I am not able to change the labels for this.
What do you want to change it to?
Or do you want to accept this issue?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Let's just make sure that we add that to the comments like section on the story itself. Right, that we should have explicitly information on like some documentation or something that this should not be used outside of the scope that is being used right now.
Makes sense.
The 998, I'm still trying to understand what is it like when, let's say, the 10 resources have ownership error and all of those
Right.
10 resources belong to, let's say, app A.
Mhm.
And we get the error on cap side. At that time, we make 10 more calls to API
Yes.
server.
Yes.
So which means essentially, if we have the resources and we get the error, even by making one call, we get to know the app name and we can just compare that the IDs are same for other resource.
Yeah.
So there will not be any caching needed on the cap controller side or on cap side. On the caching will only come into play when the error comes, and you can get the information from the resources you already have at hand, right?
And see, this is like an in-memory cache. It's not like a
Yeah, in memory
Yeah.
cache. So you don't really need a persistent cache kind of thing.
For sure not. Yeah. No.
Okay.
And this is a
Yeah.
very specific case, but like we just noticed this, so we thought it's probably worth recording it.
Yeah. So I think the the point which you are making, Joe, like somebody use this cache, I think that will not come up itself.
It depends if we make that as a package, like a separate package or something like that. Right, like if you make that an internal function inside a package. Nevertheless, I'd add the comment just for like future reference, just to make sure that like
Yeah,
when
got that.
if somebody is developing something and see this function and say like, oh, look at this looks good.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I would have
Let me try
actually
to use
gone
this,
for
right?
I thought I'd go for like a hostile variable name, but a comment works as well.
Yeah.
The problem with hostile is that is going to be do not use this variable that do not use this like thing that does that, right? Like we don't want like names that are like humongous.
That's true. But yeah, I guess when we get around to it, we should make sure that it's like discouraged to use that. And yeah, so the person who put up the issue with the deadlocked waiting also sort of put up a PR. Doesn't look very harmful right now, but I'm not entirely sure that's the right way to go. So I'm just gonna take a closer look at it.
Is this the case of
The package and package install looking waiting for each other and not
package
quite
and-
wait.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting. That is interesting. Like feels like that there's something happening in the creation of the graph
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
That is
Like at a
Making it-
first, it sounds like the graph isn't kicking in for updates, which I shouldn't think should be the case. So it definitely warrants investigation.
It's weird, like why will package wait for package install?
Oh no, I don't think that's what's happening. Like, just a sec.
Package should get updated, right?
Right, but I think I guess the word deadlocked is wrong. Like, what happened is essentially I think the package install got updated first, and the package wasn't there when it got updated, so it failed, right? Because it couldn't find the package on the cluster.
And next time package came, so package install will reconcile, right? Successfully.
Yes, but this person is deploying manually with a cap deploy. It's not a reconciler, so yeah, they have to do it again.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do we accept this?
Yep.
All right. Anything else?
Actually, I just remembered something. Since Jao, since you're here, we need some sort of cache invalidation for vendor, especially with bundles. Like there's an issue on kapp-controller. Essentially, what happens is if you relocate registries and update the package repository, it still keeps pulling from the same cache because the cache has the SHA-SUM as the key, not the it doesn't have the whole URL, right? So I think you know about this, right? Like, yeah.
I triage them. I have
Oh,
triaged them.
yeah. You probably think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't think there's like cache validation here. I think we need to be maybe more specific on the caching key. I think that might be the thing that we want to do. It's like there are like a couple of options here that but like some more evolved than others. But I think like maybe the easiest solution for us is because how do you really invalidate the cache?
Invalidation. Yeah.
I guess the most obvious one is just time-based. But then you do.
Yeah, but that doesn't help you, right? Like that doesn't help you. Like let's imagine that if you in order for it to be like useful to cache, you have to invalidate like every other day or whatever, right? Like a big period of time. And if you relocate in the meanwhile, you're still getting things from the incorrect place. So there's really no great way to invalidate the cache here. So like the easiest solution is to just make the caching key more specific.
Okay.
The better solution here is that change bundles and have bundles be a two-layered image where one layer is always pulled and the other one is cached.
I'm sorry, you lost me there.
Well, it was right. It's like
Yeah,
so
too
like
much.
right now everything is in the same layer, right?
Yeah.
Everything in terms of like the OCI image, everything is the same layer. So when you pull it down, you pull everything down.
Yeah.
For the purposes of caching in Vendir and kapp-controller, the only thing that we really want to pull down, because it's the only thing that might change, is the images YAML. Right? The rest is the same. So we shouldn't need to download it again, right?
Yeah.
So if we had like two layers, one that contained the images YAML and one that contained the content, we could make it like smarter and just make image package download always the images YAML every time and keep the cached layer,
Right.
right?
The
So
SHA would
that's
change the-
and the SHA would be the same, so it doesn't need to download everything. It just needs to download a very small file, a couple of bytes, right? So that would be like a good solution for it. How complicated is this? Like pretty complicated, because then there's backwards compatibility that we need to take care of. There's like changes, a lot of changes on image package side that need to happen. The caching doesn't, right now it's done at vendor level. It had to be like passed somewhat to image package or tell image package, create a way for vendor to say, just get me the images YAML from image package, which is a library now. So like it kind of wouldn't be like that hard, but it's like a lot of changes. So
Yeah.
as of right now, I think like the easiest solution for us is to just make the key more specific, based also on the registry that we have it, and that's like a pretty simple change in vendor. Like we do need to just be careful, because now if people start relocating images left and right, then your kapp-controller cache is going to grow.
Yep.
It's not going to break, right? It is just that it's going to make another cache, right? The older one will be no more usable.
Exactly.
So maybe we can just hash the whole thing and just create make that as the key, the hash will be fast.
That's like the easiest solution, right? Like, and that will solve the problem. And there's no like backwards compatibility that we need to think about, because when you install a new version of kapp-controller that contains this change, it will restart, so there will be nothing in the cache. So right we don't even need to think about like invalidating caches between versions or anything. Like this is like a pretty simple solution that we can just do and make it like easier.
Do we have any upper limit on the, like, I know we have upper limit of, I think 5 MB or something. But otherwise, do we have any upper limit, like your cache in total cannot exceed more than 100 MB or anything? Nothing.
No, the cache is very dumb right now. The only thing that it does for you is you tell it like per cache entry how many megabytes, or like what's the maximum size that you want to cache, and that's it. Right.
Okay.
So like it's not very smart on the way it does it. So there's no like invalidation of cache or rotation of cache or anything. Till this point, I don't think we had a problem with that. But if there's like in the future, if we see this happening, like we see start having some problems, maybe we have to add another, like the cache a little bit smarter, where it just rotates or just deletes something when it creates a new entry, like it removes the oldest or something like that, the last used or something like that.
Sure.
Which in the case of kapp-controller is a little bit bad, because it is going to be constantly like rotating. Right?
Yeah,
like because like kapp-controller, when it and the only thing that it will do is just like remove the cache for packages that no longer are installed in the system. That would be good. But like, let's imagine that you have 10 package installs that are like rotating, and you have like a limit of like 9 cache entries. It's always going to be deleting the last one and pulling the new one. So it will always pull. It will be always pulling like the new one.
And enter in that loop of possible, like, but I think we'll see if we hit there.
Like,
and
even for that, like the easiest solution, to be fair, is just like, just give it more disk. Right, just double the disk for right now.
It's cheaper, right?
Yeah. Like, because like the problem is that kapp-controller is always going to have to download again. Like, because it reconciles everything every X amount of minutes. Like it would be like in this cycle where it would be like always deleting the cache entry, and then 15 minutes later it will download it again and delete
Right.
like the other cache that was there, right? Like, so in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, like when we are talking about option 2, that there will be 2 layers. One will be the images YAML and then the content. So if there is a change in the images YAML, then kapp-controller will have internal, I don't know, kapp-controller window will have the logic to download those images again, right?
It's gonna be a different channel, right?
Yeah.
The image, the associated image will have a different type, like the images do not changes. But we could be smarter, right? Like in here, like then we could just cache in the SHA of the label that contains the content. So we could like have like older version, like let's imagine that you just change the images lock between 2 versions of the same image, right? If the second layer doesn't change, we don't need to get it again because we already have it in this.
No,
But that's like very like optimization to like a level that I think we need to go to.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that the SHA of the image changes, but the SHA of the layer of content will not change, right? Because it's just stacked on top of the next one.
Correct.
Right? So this one, it will not change, even though like the total will change. Yeah.
Yeah, got it. Sure.
Like we did talk about like this idea of having like multi-layer bundles. But like we talked about it like I think maybe like 2 years ago or something like that, where we started talking about caching and things like that. But it just felt like it was a lot of work, and the main problem is that we need to be backwards compatible, and that is going to just make it much more complicated. Everything's going to be much more complicated.
Sure.
All right. Anything else on this?
Are y'all gonna create a story for this? An issue for this? And are you gonna work on it?
There's already story, right?
Is there like an issue on it on Vendit? All right.
Oh yeah, it's there on GitHub. Right?
Is in GitHub. Okay.
Yeah. I can link it.
Yeah, could you add that?
Just a sec.
Yeah, because Ben told me that he was going to create a story, but to be fair, I didn't see the story going through.
He did create
Did create. It's there
there you
in
go.
kapp-controller, I think.
Yeah, I put in the Zoom chat.
Thank you. All right. If we are good with this. Right now, I think how we are doing this is we are asking that the kapp-controller be restarted.
Sorry, what?
To overcome this, we are asking that the kapp-controller be restarted.
Oh yeah, it's the only option. There's nothing else can do right now. But it's not feasible, to be fair. Like every time that you copy something around, you cannot have people just restart kapp-controller because some people might not have access to it.
All right. I had one last thing that I wanted to maybe get some help from you all also. There is the last health check that was done for Carvel was done in January. And then I think we need to do it at least twice a year. So I'm planning to do a health check before August is over and update some of the statistics. I don't know where I'm going to update it, but I'll share when that is done. So if anybody wants to volunteer to help with this, you let me know. Else I can do it myself. I will do it.
One thing I was
Volunteers?
going to do is update the maintainers MD. So once I've done that, I'll probably ping on the Kubernetes Slack channel.
Okay.
Is this for? What is this for? Is this for CNCF?
This is something I think which we have been doing throughout for all the open source projects that we've been doing in VMware /Broadcom. So we'll continue to do that. And I think there has been an ask by the TOC also to have a health check done in August. So I shall do it.
Yeah, like I remember there's something that we need to do, like that you've been doing every year around this time for CNCF. I forget what it is. Is that like the health check? I think?
It was once we became the sandbox project, I think there was supposed to be a review, a project review.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, but the project review has not happened. Neither has last year, neither has it happened this year.
Oh, it didn't happen last year?
I don't think so. It has happened.
Great.
Yeah, that would be a good thing also to start off maybe.
Mhm.
The action items would be on us. We need to put up some doc somewhere in the CNCF GitHub repository and ask them to do a review. I think something of that sort. I'm not very clear on the steps. Let me find out. All right. Anything else for today? Then thank you all for joining today's meeting and see you next time.